The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. This is Nick Morrell with Audio Video Export. I'm the sales manager here, and it's a pleasure to have with us today Elvin Lopez of Universal Remote Control, who's going to be talking about really how awesome Accelerator is and the greatness of the program. And I say that as a fanboy, literally, because I've taken their 3-day courses in person before. And as much of a fanboy as I was before taking the 3-day courses, I definitely became even more of a fanboy after. The power of the system that it can do and the ease that it allows, with which it allows you to do it, is pretty spectacular. So Elvin's got a small little presentation, and we're going to dive into some programming. We're not going to go into a whole lot of great detail, but we really want to give you a taste of how easy it is for us to be able to do this, as well as take away any stigma for what programming is or is not. May or may not be. So thanks so much, Elvin, for being here, and this is going to be recorded. If anybody does have any questions, feel free to place a question in the question box, and we'll get to that right away. So thanks again, Elvin, and all yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Happy to be here. All right, guys. So what we're going to be talking about right now is the magic of Accelerator. As Nick mentioned, Total Control is very easy to program, and the way we program the system is through the platform known as Accelerator 2.0. Now, if you do have questions, please feel free to drop your questions down into the questions dialog box at any point in time. I will let you guys know ahead of time, though. We will most likely answer all questions at the very end. If it's a big question that popped up and it's something that can benefit you in class, we'll have a quick discussion and bring it up when the time is relevant. But moving forward here, let's start talking about what Accelerator is. And one of the biggest things that you want to know about Accelerator is that it is the incredibly fast and powerful software platform that is used to program a Total Control 2.0 system. And what makes it so powerful is the fact that it can shave hours, if not days worth of programming time off any given project. The reason that Accelerator 2.0 can make your programming process so much quicker is because of all the things that it already does for you. Accelerator 2.0 is going to automatically create every user interface in your system. What's a user interface? A user interface is just a fancy word for the remote control. How is the user going to interact with the system? Well, they're going to do so from any one of our wand-styled remote controls like the 1080 or the 820. Any of our keypads, our in-wall keypads like the 9600, the 7600, and the 5600. URC Mobile, which is available for free on iOS or Android. Or our new tabletop controllers, the TDC 7100 and the soon-to-be released TDC 9100. Those are all the various user interfaces that we have, and regardless of how many of these you have in your project, by clicking the one magic button, which we'll talk about later on inside of the software, our system will automatically generate all of the device menus, the main menus, layouts, everything you could possibly think of will be made automatically for you across all of your user interfaces. Now, we're building these device layouts as well, so cable boxes, Apple TVs, televisions, AVRs, anything like that. We automatically build the layout for them. We do the button placements, the button names, everything you can think of, we already include in there. Now, of course, you can customize the stuff that Accelerator is generating for you. You can customize it after the acceleration, or you can even do so beforehand. Doing so beforehand is by creating custom drivers. And custom drivers are just a template that contains all of a device's attributes, including the button names, the button layouts, the functions, IR functions, RC32, IP, graphics, all of these different things can be categorized under drivers. Now, although drivers are very important, it will not be the main focus of today's class. However, towards the end of the presentation or towards the end of the actual course here, I'll walk you into the URC dealer portal where you can find e-learnings that we have, self-paced courses that you can take on drivers. Now, the other thing that Total Control is going to automatically do for you is it's going to build all of your basic activity macros. Now, before I explain this, let's first take a look and think about what are a basic activity macro. I'll give you a few examples. Watch cable, watch Roku, listen to Pandora. Any type of activity like that is considered a basic activity macro, and Total Control has the capability of building all of those macros for you automatically. Now, these macros are bulletproof as long as all the information you enter prior to clicking the magic button is correct. Your macros will always work 100% of the time. Now, the good thing about our system is that even these macros that are generated for you, they can be customized. You can modify them, you can copy and paste them. You can take anything that Accelerator builds for you, customize it, and use it for your own means. Now, we also developed the rooms menu for you as well. I have a slide dedicated on this in just a bit, so I won't go into too much detail here. Now, we also build these special device power commands, and this is again something that Accelerator is doing for you automatically. And these power commands have one job. Their one job is to simply track the power state of your device. We'll go into more details on this in just a bit. The other thing we're building for you are room off and house off macros. Every room that you add into Total Control will automatically generate a room off macro. You added a living room, well, there's a living room off macro. You added a master bedroom, there's a master bedroom off macro, so on and so forth. Now, we don't just leave it off at the room off macros, we also build for you the house off macro. Now, this macro is found in your power menu, which to access your power menu, take any user interface and press and hold the power button for greater than 3 seconds. That'll display the power menu, and the power menu will give you the option to turn off the house. Turning off the house will turn off every room in the system. It'll turn off all of your AV equipment, and you can also customize it to turn off more advanced devices such as lighting devices, maybe adjusting a temperature on a thermostat, or even locking a door lock on a Z-Wave unit. Something else that we're doing for you automatically are audio punch-throughs. If you're not familiar with what an audio punch-through is, it's when you're controlling one device, but you want the audio from that device to come out of another. For example, let's say you've got a TV, an AVR, and a cable box. Your customer says, anytime I'm watching cable, I want the audio to come out of the AVR. That means that you're punching audio from the cable box through to the AVR, hence punch-throughs. Now, Total Control is great because it does this for you automatically as well, which means one less thing for you to worry about, one less thing for you to have to program. Now, the two core features of Accelerator 2.0 are the fact that it has a linear design. All of our steps are numbered. And if you're new to Accelerator, you can program a fully functioning system by simply following the steps 1 through 14. As you get more advanced and you want to do more advanced things in the system, you'll realize that these numbers are more of a recommendation and you can kind of jump around whenever you need to. However, if you're new to Accelerator, always follow those steps numbered 1 through 14. And as you build more experience, you'll become more comfortable in terms of what times you need to be in a certain step versus what times you don't. And then lastly, and this is actually one of the biggest features for Accelerator and why it's so easy to program, is it features a drag and drop programming design. You guys will see that very soon. Now let me give you an example or a look at what the interfaces are actually generating. This is a good look at a layout for a ribbon view on a touchscreen interface. Now this was taken directly from URC Mobile, but you'll also see this displayed on any in-wall keypads or tabletop controllers. With the default ribbon view, you get 6 buttons per page, and one of the things that our software will try to do is it will automatically try to categorize your devices into specific categories, and it'll put them in folders. So, for example, we have the entertainment folder that's displayed on the screen right now, and this will contain any type of entertainment device, so video entertainment, audio entertainment, whatever the case may be. Now, you can specify things a little bit further if you want to create a music category folder and have only music activities in here, such as Pandora, Sonos, Hios, anything like that. Now, looking a step further, let's say we want to actually launch a device and see the actual layout. So this is an example of what the cable TV layout looks like on your touchscreen interfaces. Now, on touchscreen interfaces, there are no hard buttons. Hard buttons mean physical buttons on the remote control that the customer can physically press down and feel the feedback. Now, on in-wall keypads, tabletop, and URC Mobile, that's not possible because there are no physical buttons. However, we do have hard buttons mapped virtually, and you can see that on the screen displayed. We have the transport commands such as play, pause, stop, skip, etc. We have the navigation keys, which are located right here. That would be left, right, up, down, select, enter, those types of buttons. We have the numerical keypad located on the right-hand side. That's very important, especially for cable boxes. That's when you want to change your channels, enter in custom channel numbers, hitting enter, anything like that. And then the actual device functions such as on-demand, live TV, picture-in-picture, anything like that is located on this bottom left-hand section with these 3 little dots. Selecting that will display for you all of the available functions. But let's see how we get there. So we showed you the result of a cable device layout, but how do we get to that? How do we get that to display on the UI? Well, first thing we need to do is locate the device. Cable is a type of entertainment activity, so I'll click on the entertainment folder. I'll click on cable TV. And what happens is once I click on this, the system is running this macro that the system has already built for me. Now I'm going to break down this macro real quickly because I do want you guys to have this understanding before we go into the software. If any of you guys have ever programmed Complete Control or any of our standalone editing software for any of our legacy remotes, you'll probably notice a few things in this macro window that will kind of strike you as a red flag. The first thing that you guys are going to notice are the first two jump commands in that macro window. We have the jump to cable and then a jump that says please wait. Typically in other software programs that URC delivers, your jumps go at the end. Total Control is different. And again, this is an accelerated macro. That means that this is a macro that Total Control built for me already. The first jump removes the user interface from the main menu. It brings it to the device's landing page. The next jump is called please wait, and this please wait has what we like to call an intelligent delay. What this does is it has a please wait spin circle, or as we like to call it, an overlay screen. And this overlay is smart enough to know to wait for the entire macro to complete. Once the macro completes, the intelligent delay goes away, so that please wait screen gets removed automatically as soon as the macro completes. That's pretty powerful, and again, this macro was done for us automatically. Now, the next thing, I don't really want you guys to focus necessarily on the functions themselves, but rather on the function type. Directly underneath that please wait jump, we have a device power command. Now, we're turning two devices on. Just a few slides ago, I told you guys that Total Control builds these special device power macros designed specifically to track the power state of a device. That's what this is. Anytime we want to turn on or off a device, we use a device power macro. Our software follows those same rules, which is why anytime it auto-generates a basic activity macro, it'll always utilize these device power macros to track the power. After that, we have a connected data command, and this is just any one-way IR, RC32, or IP command, whether it's to change inputs, whether it's to change a surround sound mode, whatever the case may be. If it's not power related, it will not be created as a device power. It'll be created as a connected device command. And those are really the different command types that you'll be using. We'll show you some more things as we jump through the software, but I just kind of want you to know all of that before we move forward. Now, modifying macros is very easy. We're going to see this in the software as well. In the software, there is this little drop-down window on the right-hand side it's called the Connected Device window. Connected Device gives you access to your one-way commands through Connected Device, your Z-Wave devices through ZW device, your device power macros, anything like that can all be found here. So let's say we wanted to add Z-Wave lighting to this macro. What we would do is we would select ZW device, which will then give us the option to pick what room our device is located and then picking the actual device itself. At that point, we find the command we want, so for example, 15%, and then we drag and drop it into the macro we want to customize. And that's how easy it is to program or to change any Accelerator built macro. Now you guys will see me do this in a couple different ways. I'm also going to show you how to build custom macros and what the correct macro theory is when you're building custom macros. This here is your rooms menu. Just wanted you guys to get a good view of this. Again, this is something our software builds for you automatically, and it allows you to customize a few things, such as you can use custom graphics in all of your room images. If you want to use any of the room images we have in the software, you're always welcome to do so. But if you want to personalize the system a little bit better, you can take pictures of your customer's actual room, so of their home theater, of their master bedroom, of their game room, whatever the case may be, and you can utilize those pictures into this rooms menu to give the customer a more personalized setting here. And to change rooms is very simple. Access the rooms menu and then click on the icon on the picture of the room you want to enter or control. Next, we provide you with basic volume control directly from the rooms menu. This means you can increase, decrease, or mute the volume of any selected room without entering that room. You can do it all from the rooms menu. And there's no additional programming to this. This is all done for you automatically. We also offer an optional lights off action button. Now this is designed to turn lights off, and this one is not programmed for you automatically, simply because we don't know what lighting system you're using. So you can build a custom macro, assign the custom macro to that button, and that'll turn off the lights in that room. And then the last bit, or one of the second to last things that we offer on the rooms menu, is our room power off. This allows you to turn off any room directly from the rooms menu. Now playing, this just tells you what's currently active in that room. So I can tell you the master bedroom is listening to Pandora, the home theater is watching Roku, and the game room is playing Xbox. By selecting this now playing area, I can jump directly into the active device of that room and control that device, that activity directly from my remote, regardless of what room I am physically in. Last thing we have here is DMS linking. DMS linking is for our first-party DMS audio products. It's how we handle music distribution. We can distribute music in up to 32 zones of the house. That's also the maximum amount of zones we can control through Total Control. And when we link rooms together, it's very similar to grouping in Sonos or grouping in HEOS, except it's on a bigger scale. When you group with HEOS or Sonos, you're sharing one built-in source, whether it's Apple Music, Spotify, whatever the case may be, and you're sharing that source amongst all those grouped HEOS or Sonos devices. It works very similar in Total Control, except instead of grouping DMS devices, you're grouping rooms together. You're sharing a source across rooms. You're having simultaneous volume control across all of those linked rooms, and you also get individual volume control in those rooms as well. Now, a more advanced feature that we offer recently through DMS is the ability to do third-party room linking by using the DMS out. The DMS out is just one of the members of the DMS family line of products, and what it does is you can connect it to any third-party AVR or soundbar or any type of third-party audio device, and this DMS out will allow that third-party audio device to room link with any DMS controlled zone. So that means, let's say you have a DMS 1200, which is an 8-zone unit, 6 powered, 2 preamp, and you want to use 3 of those powered zones in your system. Now you have a DMS out, you have it in a room that has a third-party AVR. Now with that DMS out, you can room link that DMS to any 3 of those DMS rooms with your zone of audio that's not being controlled by DMS. Now you can link those rooms together, which means you can share the source, get the volume control. It's all pretty great. The only thing to note about room linking with third-party audio devices is that on the simultaneous volume meter, so when you have rooms linked, you get a volume menu and it has simultaneous volume control. So if you increase the volume there, it increases the volume on all of your linked zones. And then you get individual volume control. So you get each room individually with a slider that you can adjust for each room. When it comes to third party, that simultaneous volume will not affect the third party audio zone. So for third party rooms, you must always adjust the volume manually or independently on that volume menu. You don't have to go into any other room or anything like that. You just hit volume once, you'll see the menu, and then on that third party controlled zone, you must increase the volume using the slider, not the simultaneous. So just wanted you guys to kind of note that. There is a very good guide on how to do all of this as well. I'll show you how to get access to all of that at the end of the class. So here's just a quick breakdown on some of those special macros. So the device power macro, every third-party device in your system gets a device power on and a device power off. Again, these macros are designed to turn things on or off in your system, and it's designed to keep it in track, to keep the system in sync. Now, we do good power tracking of your toggle devices as well. The system will automatically build variables for you to track the status of your devices. Just keep in mind, it's software tracking, so if somebody physically goes up to the device and turns it off, that tracking kind of gets skewed because we can't account for somebody physically turning off the box. But through the utilization of our URC sensors, we can build bulletproof power tracking without any additional programming. The system is constantly polling any of these sensors to tell whether or not that device is powered on. So for example, you can take a light sensor, put it on the front of your cable box, and whenever that cable box light turns on, our system knows that the device is currently on, and when the cable box light turns off, our system knows the device is off. So there's various different sensors you can use. The video sensor is just one example, but we have audio sensors, we have video sensors, we have plenty of things that you can use. And lastly, device power macros are used in room status, and this is just tied to the fact that it is tracking the power status of your devices. Next, we have the room power macros, and the only way I want you to remember this right now is that these room power macros are designed to turn rooms off. There is another purpose for room power macros, and I'll explain it later on, but for now, just know that these are built automatically and they're used to turn devices off. To turn rooms off. However, the way that it does this is by grouping all of the device power off macros for any room to turn off all the devices in that room. Then we have the house off macro, which is another special macro that's built for you automatically. And what I want you to notice here is that the house off macro is comprised of a collection of all the room power off macros in the system. So that's kind of the hierarchy there. Starts off with device power that turns things on or off. Room off macros uses all the device power off macros found in a single room. And then the house off macro uses all of the room power macros in a single system. So it's pretty cool what it can do. All right, guys, so we're going to jump into the software. So if you do have questions, please feel free to drop them into the questions dialog box. But what we're going to do is jump into Accelerator. And I'm going to show you how to program a few rooms. We'll add some DMS to this as well. I'll add some two-way devices so that you guys can get a good look at almost everything that we have to offer. So what I'm going to be kind of delivering here is a condensed version of what we do in our 3-day training. So if you guys have never had a chance to attend our 3-day, you'll kind of get a little glimpse as to what we do. We do certain things a bit differently just to kind of keep things easy to understand and just for programming purposes. We don't know everybody's level of total control knowledge, so we want to make it as easy as possible for anyone. So with that said, if you have something that you don't understand or if there's something that you do differently, just make a comment or a question in the dialog box, and at the end of the class, we'll address everything and kind of work from there. So we start off at step 1, which is name and location. The one key area here is the primary controller location. You cannot move on into step 2 until you've completed that. What I'm going to do here, though, I'm going to make things a little more interesting. We're going to change the system name to Jane's House. System name is never displayed for the end user. However, it is important for offsite programming. Whatever system name you provide will display in your offsite programming account. And you should sign up for offsite programming. It's free. If you're not familiar with what offsite programming is, offsite programming allows you to register any system. So you go on site, you register the system to your offsite programming account. After it's been registered, you can log into that system from anywhere in the world with network. As long as you have a network connection, an internet connection, you can make programming changes, download to it, and pretty much do anything. So it's a great way to offer seasonal changes to your system, to your customers' programming, whether they want like Christmas themed graphics, Thanksgiving themed graphics, anything like that. It's a very simple log in, connect, make your programming changes and download. It's just straight revenue at that point. No need for a service truck or anything like that. Okay, so the system is going to be called Jane's House. And typically when you do primary controller locations, you're telling the system where is your primary controller located. This can be a rack, this can be an equipment closet, this can be in a physical room with other products. And the way that we teach this in our 3-day course, just to kind of eliminate any indiscrepancies, is we do put it into a room. We actually put it into the living room. So that's what we're going to do here. And then the next thing that we do is, let me just make sure I spelled this correctly, living room, is we choose the primary controller type. By default, MRX30 is always selected. The MRX30 is our flagship processor. It's the most beastly processor that we currently offer. But for this system here, I'm going to go with an MRX15. And that's all you want to do. You just want to pick what is your primary controller type. What controller am I using? What is going to be my primary base station? Remember that the primary base station is the brains of the operation. It's what runs everything in your system. Everything goes through that primary. Primary will go ahead and push any commands either to auxiliary base stations, or it'll fire any commands through its IR ports, its serial ports, its relay ports, its 12-volt trigger ports, or over the network. Time and date, this is just your time zone. This will typically be pre-populated for you from your Windows settings. Just always confirm that it is correct. Eastern time is fine because I am here in Harrison, New York, so everything is good here. Weather City, this is going to be for the Weather City module that is included on all touchscreen interfaces. So that's going to be your in-wall keypads, URC Mobile does not have it. All your in-wall keypads and your tabletop controllers, they will all have access to our weather module. Our weather module provides you with the current forecast as well as a 3-day forecast. It's pretty nice. And what you would just do to configure it is you click set, you type in the name of your city, hit search, and it'll display for you pretty much everything that has that name here. So if we go with Harrison, New York here, we can click save, and that takes care of what we want. And I do believe this works internationally as well. So for example, if I typed in Mexico City, yep, so this does work internationally. So just type in the name of your location, hit search, and you will find exactly what you're looking for. Now, the next thing here is the sunrise and sunset, and this is in terms of your astronomical clock. Every base station has an astronomical clock, and this astronomical clock is used to automate events based on time. So if you want something to happen at sunrise, sunset, anything in between, we use the astronomical clock to give you the most accurate trigger for your time-based event. Now, if you are programming a system within the United States, you can just simply enter in the zip code, hit enter, and it will automatically find your city state, as well as enter in your coordinates in latitude and longitude. However, if you are programming a system outside of the United States, in order to properly configure your sunrise and sunset, you must enter in the latitude and longitude. Simply go on Google, type in what's my latitude and longitude, and Google can take care of the rest for you. Once all of this information has been entered, click on Save to Project Tree. And there we go. So that primary controller location becomes the very first room in your system, and you can see that on the left-hand side under the project tree. Primary controller is located directly beneath that, and that's really, really cool. Now, one thing I'm going to show you here, let's say we would have added the incorrect base station. So let's say I didn't change the MRX30 and, well, I'm using a 15, so at that point I really wouldn't be able to program much further. Instead of just restarting and programming a new file, simply click on File at the top, click on Convert File, and then you can choose to convert it to a different primary controller type, or if you've added another controller and you would like to make that controller the primary, you can use the second option. Both of them are perfectly easy. Once you make the option, hit OK, and then just choose your different base station. Now, I'm not going to do that because I want to stick with the 15 here. Going back to step 2, let me show you how easy it is to add a room. Now, you could simply drag and drop any of the rooms that are available here, but honestly, nobody really does that. These are pre-populated rooms. You can drag and drop them if you like. There's also commercial pre-populated rooms, but this is the easiest way to add any room. I'm going to add a master bedroom, so I'm going to just type it out, hit enter, done. There's my second room. I'm going to add a game room. There's my third room, and I'm going to add a few more rooms. I'm going to add a kitchen, a dining room, a patio, a study, front hall, and a front door. So we've got quite a few different rooms here. Now, with any of these given rooms, you can right-click on the room. Actually, we'll start with the living room. Right-click on it, and you can go into the Properties menu. The Properties menu lets you do a couple things. First thing you can do is you can choose to hide the room. So let's say we were doing this with a rack or an equipment closet, and we don't want the customer to have access to that room. What I would just do is check this box here, and that will hide the room from the user interface. It doesn't hide it from your programming. As a programmer, you'll still have access to any of the devices that are in that room. However, your customer will not have access to any of the sources that you have in there, whether it's an AVR, matrix switch, or anything like that. You don't have to worry about your customer having access to it and potentially messing something up. Right underneath that, we have the lights off action command. Now, this one we're going to leave blank right here because so far we haven't programmed anything. This is something you would come back to after you've completed your programming. And this is going to be in relation to that lights off optional button we have on the rooms menu. So that thing that I showed you there, that's what this is related to. If it's blank, a lights off button just won't display in the rooms menu. However, if you do add something here, the lights off button will display. Underneath that, we have the status display items, and this is going to be important for any of your touchscreen interfaces, so your in-wall keypads, as well as your tabletop controllers. They will all show this directly above the volume buttons. And you can make up to 4 selections, and the system will automatically cycle through them. You can do the room link status, room alarm clock status, vacation mode status, sunrise time, sunset time, RSS weather alert, or the DMS AV surround mode status. Typically, what people will do with this one here is the room alarm clock. Since alarm clocks are built natively into the system, you do program the events you want to happen on those alarm clocks, but anything else can be programmed natively. We'll do sunrise, we'll do sunset, and we'll also do the weather alert. Additionally, other things that you can customize from this rooms menu, which again, we got here by right-clicking on any room name, is we can customize the room image that displays on the rooms menu. Simply click on image, and you can choose from any of the icons that are available here. So let's look for a nice living room one. I like this one. We'll hit OK. And then the same thing can be done to background. All you have to do is click on the image button here. And this will allow you to choose any background you want. That black background is the default, so if you don't change this on your own, the room will automatically be applied that background, that black little blankets background. Once you're here, you can choose any of the other custom graphics that you might like. I'm gonna go with this one, hit OK. And then lastly, sorry about that, we'll hit OK. And there we go. Let me unhide this room. As you can see, it's kind of grayed out here. That's because I accidentally left it hidden, but real easy fix. Uncheck the box, hit OK, done. And this can be done for any of these rooms. So right-clicking properties, you can customize it however you see fit. All right, I'm going to move on to step 3 here, which is where we add URC devices. This is where we add any device that has a URC logo on the box. So let's start with the living room. And in the living room, we're going to add a TRC 1080. And to do so, sorry, let me just go back here. We're going to locate the 1080 and we're going to double click on it. Once we double click on it, we can see the remote keypad properties window here. And this allows us to customize a couple aspects of the remote. First thing is the main menu style. Now, using ribbon view, you're going to be displayed 3 buttons per page. So my opinion for 1080s and 820s, it's best to go into grid view. Grid view allows you to have 6 buttons per page on your wand-styled remotes. Since the 1080 and the 820 only have a 2-inch display, I always recommend disabling the submenu thumbnails. What this does is on your entertainment folders or on any category folder you have, you'll have tiny thumbnail images of the sources that are located in that folder. We can customize where we want the main button to jump us to. We're going to leave it on the main menu though, as scenes are probably not going to be something we get to cover in this course here. The rooms module, this can be customized if you would like to. If under default, the rooms menu will show us every room that's located here. But if you wanted to change that, we could click on custom lists and check the boxes of what rooms we want displayed. We can also change the order of how those rooms are displayed by hitting the first, down, or up and last buttons that we have here to change that viewing order. Lastly is disable. If you use disable, it'll disable the rooms menu altogether and make that user interface into a single room remote. I'll leave this at default and I will click on apply. Next up, I'm going to add an iPad mobile here. And when it comes to iOS or Android, you want to add an instance of the interface to the room where the customer is most likely going to open it. The reason for that is when your customer launches the app, whether it's from their iPad or their iPhone, it's going to ask them to select a profile. If you add an instance of URC Mobile into every room, your customer is going to see a profile for every room, which that just makes a very cluttered looking UI. Instead, you want to add the iOS remote into whatever room they're most likely going to access it, and then you have them use the rooms menu to change what room they're going to be controlling. It's just the easiest way to do it. Now, you can add some type of security to that iOS profile by going to this box here. Simply check require user access code, type in the code here, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this one homeowner. So that means that whenever the customer, our homeowner, wants to use this, they'll click the homeowner profile, enter in that code, which they only need to enter whenever they're first launching the URC mobile app, and then they'll have control of their entire system. But let's say our homeowner here has kids and they frequently have a babysitter over. Let's add one more version of iPad, and we tell that babysitter, hey, you can download this URC mobile app. Just look for the guest profile, which that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to put a bracket here, call it guest. There's no security code behind this one, but look at what I'm going to do. I'm going to disable the rooms menu, which means it'll only have access to the living room. So that babysitter or whoever that guest is can only use the system within the living room here, and they'll only have access to whatever's available in the living room. So if you have security cameras or other types of things you don't want guests having access to, this is a great way to do that. You can give your guests ability to control devices, but you don't give them full access to everything in the system. And then the last device I'm going to add here is a 7100. This one I'll leave at all the default view modes, and I'll just click apply. That'll be all the URC devices I'm going to add into this living room, so we're going to leave it nice and easy. Next up, I'm going to go into step 4, which is where we add other types of devices. This is going to be your non-URC devices. And we're going to start with the living room, and we're going to use the URC database. However, keep in mind that we typically want to use custom drivers. Just custom drivers do take some time to create, and I can literally teach you drivers in an hour, so I'm not going to be able to do that here. But we do have webinars pretty frequently on drivers, so if you are interested, we do have classes such as webinars and e-learnings for that. We'll stick with URC. We're going to go to the IR database, and we're going to make sure that our room here says living room, because that is where we want to add our devices. I'm just going to change something up real quickly right here, because I see that living room is all in one word. There we go. All right, so IR database, our first device is going to be a cable box, and we're going to do an AT&T UVerse cable box. So we just look for the brand, we look for the model, and then we double click. Now I'm going to rename this because UVerse doesn't really mean much to our customer, and we're going to call this cable TV, which that's something that our customer can understand. Now typically when we build our own drivers, from within that driver we set the button name, so anytime we add a device into our project tree, it'll automatically adopt the name that we've selected. Next up, I'm going to add a Apple TV, and I'll rename this to make things a little bit easier. Apple TV is located under auxiliary, and that's also controlled under IR. Now, although this is going to be, this is in the works, we don't have an ETA on this, we are currently working on one-way IP commands for Apple TV. So in the very near future, we will be able to control the Apple TV over IP as opposed to using IR, which is a pretty cool feature. Next, let's add a Blu-ray player. So let's go into the DVD category, which is where our Blu-ray players are located. We'll go with Sony, and we're going to choose the BDP S780. Double click to add, right click, rename, call it Blu-ray. All right, next up is going to be an AVR, but this time we're going to use serial. We're going to use RS-232. So instead of the IR database, I'll use this drop-down menu to choose RS-232, and then I'm going to choose audio. Now you'll notice that there's a bit of a segregation in our brands list, and anything that's at the top are just the most commonly used brands, but any brand can be located towards the bottom of this list. Now I'm going to go click on Yamaha this time, and under the models here, we're going to notice something different. Now notice at the top it says Accelerator driver models, and as I scroll down, we have the standard database models. Never use the standard database models. You always want to go with the Accelerator driver models, and we typically call these bolded drivers. Bolded drivers are pretty much ready to go. The only thing they lack is customization. However, all the functions are available, they all work, all the available zones are there, any available inputs, any available built-in sources, all of that is located inside of these bolded drivers. As a matter of fact, anytime you want to create a custom driver for a TV, an AVR, or a matrix switcher, you always want to start off with a bolded driver. Bolded drivers aren't available for everything though. They're only available for any device that has multiple outputs, multiple inputs, or multiple built-in sources. So the AVR that I'm going to add here is the RXA 3050. So let's locate that real quickly. Here it is. Double click, and then I'm going to rename it to AVR. Now here's something that I'm going to teach you guys real quickly. AVRs, TVs, a lot of common devices have apps built into them. We call these built-in sources. If you're selling an Apple TV, a Roku, or any type of media player, you don't need the built-in sources on that device. As a matter of fact, having those built-in sources is going to create a clutter on your UI, because you could have a button that does Pandora, but it's not coming from the AVR, it's coming from another type of device. So you don't want to build that type of confusion. So what you want to do is, on those devices that have built-in sources like an AVR, right-click on it, click on Properties, and then from here, you have this little checkbox, and you can uncheck the box to hide that built-in source. And I'm going to do this for every source that's available on this AVR. In other words, I just want this AVR for volume. I'm going to use multimedia sources from elsewhere. And I'm done. Perfect. Now I'm going to add an IP controlled television. So we're going to go IP here. We're going to go to TV. And I'm going to go with a Sony TV. We're going to go with the XBR100Z9D. I'll double click to add. Going to right click on this name here, call it TV. And I'm going to do the same thing I did to the AVR. Right click, Properties. And then from here, I'm going to look at all the built-in sources and simply uncheck these boxes. Thankfully, this one doesn't have too many. Perfect. There is all the devices for my first room. We're almost done with programming our first room. And you'll see that the next rooms that I'm going to program, I'm going to talk a lot less and show you a lot more, which is mostly going to be me just clicking on things. You're going to see how quick and easy it is when you have somebody who's not talking and just programming. So I'm going to go to step 5 here and do all of my IR assignments. So cable box is IR1, Apple TV is IR2, Blu-ray is IR3, and my AVR will go to RS-232 port 1. If you are using sensors, you can go to the sensor sub-step and assign your sensors to what ports they're connected to. And same thing with any relays. You can label your relays or your 12-volt triggers and add them into your custom macros later on. We're going to move into step 6 though, which is going to be our network setup. And I'm going to click on apply PC settings here to get the PC information. And these are the network credentials of my actual computer. I can change things up here as I see fit. So if I'm using an alternate DNS, I can enter that here. And if I'm using an alternate DNS, I can do this as well. Now, what I will tell you, we do recommend using your ISPs as the primary DNS. Whatever DNS they use that as your primary, and then you can use Google or any other type of third-party DNS as your alternate. There are certain devices like IP cameras, as well as like, for example, Wattbox by Snap AV, where they use a different type of DNS. You can piggyback off their DNS if you choose to do so as well. Then you want to add in any of your wireless information here. So we would click add new, type in the SSID, which over here is station 24. Security mode should be WPA2, and then you type in your network encryption. So whatever the password is, just type that in. If you do have any remotes that have USB ports, you can click on Send Wireless List via AP to send the wireless information to that remote over USB. However, you cannot download the entire configuration via USB. The only thing you can download is the network information. I'm going to click Save here, and I'm going to go to URC device. Now, I don't actually have an MRX15 here in my office, but what you would do once you want to discover these devices, you want to click on Refresh. It'll display on the right-hand side. You'll select it and you'll hit Assign. You'll do this for every URC device that's available in the system. So this one I do have. So when I click on Assign here, you can see it pop up. You can assign it to a static IP address if you'd like. To do so, simply double-click where it says Type. Click on Settings. And then from here, you can set your static IP address, or you can set it to DHCP. Now, when it comes to network assignments, we either do a static IP address or we do a DHCP reservation. It's really up to the preference of the programmer. Now, training, what we're recommending is DHCP reservation, so that's doing a reservation within your router. And we recommend that for all of your URC devices and for all of your non-URC devices. Now, this is the only device that I have here, but I just want you to remember, you'll go into step 6, you'll go into URC device, you'll hit refresh and discover every URC device. You have to discover these devices in order for us to download to them. You're also going to enter in the IP address of any IP controlled device. So for example, this TV that we have, we're going to type in an IP address for it. And this IP address should also be either a DHCP reservation or a static IP address. Now with all of our network information set up, we're going to go into step 7. And then from here, we're going to connect our sources to our devices. So this is just a virtual mapping of all of your devices. So cable TV here is connected to AV1 on the AVR. This UI zone lock is in reference to any time you're going to connect the DMS out to a third-party AVR for room linking. If you're not doing that, you can leave this to all and just click OK. Going to also do the Blu-ray player. The Blu-ray player is going to be set to AV2. And then our Apple TV is going to be set to AV3. Next, the TV is going to be set to, well, we're going to take AVR zone 1 and connect it to the HDMI 1. And what we're doing here is we're telling the system that our TV is having its audio ran through the AVR, and the AVR has all the sources connected. However, the AVR is still a source to the TV, and that source is connected to HDMI 1, and zone 1 is in reference to the main zone that AVR has. This AVR supports up to 4 zones. Next, we'll go into zone assignment. And I'm going to take this living room and drag and drop it into zone 1 of this AVR. This lets the system know that for this system here, the living room's audio is being controlled by the AVR. Now we're going to skip step 9 because step 9 is only in use for IP cameras and for Z-Wave, which we are doing neither right now. So we're going to skip into step 10 and we're going to simply accelerate. This is the magic button. This magic button builds all of the menus for us. So we have the entertainment menu right here. And if we want to see what's inside of that entertainment menu, we can go down here where it says all sub-menus. And in entertainment, we've got cable TV, Blu-ray, and Apple TV. Those are our sources. Under the settings menu, we have the AVR, offsite options, which is for offsite programming, and that's what's in there. Now we can double click on any of these to change the names. We can also drag and drop them to rearrange them however we see fit. Click apply, and then we'll go into step 12, which is where we have the second magic button when we click accelerate. Clicking accelerate has the system build all of the device menus. Here is the device macro, all of the device macros, so all of your activity macros. So here is your activity macro for cable TV, Blu-ray, and Apple TV, all built for you automatically. I could download to the system right now, and this living room is fully controllable. All the AV sources that are located here can be controlled by the system with the macros that have just been generated. Next, I'll go to step 13. Everything is punched through properly except for the main menu. We never do a punch through on the main menu simply because we never know if your customer is going to use it. This just means that from the main menu, the customer can control volume from the selected source. So if we wanted to punch it to the main zone of that AVR, all we need to do is drop this menu down, choose the device, click save, and that takes care of it for us. Lastly is step 14, which is themes and graphics. This is where you assign graphics to your user interface. And you can do so by just dragging and dropping any of these onto the graphic you want to replace. If you want to look at these devices that are in specific settings menus, you can go to entertainment down here under menu type, and then you can change everything as you see fit here. So maybe we use this one for the Apple TV, Blu-ray. And again, these are things that you would customize from within the driver. Customizing this from the driver saves you a lot of time. At this point, we download. It'll ask us to save. I'm not going to save this just yet because I want to add other devices to these other rooms. And I'm going to do so a little bit quickly. You guys will still see me go over a lot of things, but I kind of want us to discuss a few more things before the end of this course. So I do apologize if the next two rooms that I'm going to program are a bit fast, but I'm doing so intentionally. So I'm going to go to step 3 to add some devices to those rooms. So this time I'm going to the master bedroom. I'm going to add a 4IR, which is our wireless auxiliary controller. This is our auxiliary base station. I'm going to add another 1080. Set to grid, no thumbnails. And I'm also going to add a 7600. Now there's one thing to call out here for the 7600. Our 7600 can be mounted landscape or portrait, but you must tell it inside of the software what the orientation is going to be. This one we'll leave at landscape, and we'll just click on apply. As you can see, adding URC devices is extremely easy. So let's move on to the next step, which is step 4, and we're going to add our non-URC devices. Now I'm going to add the same brand of cable box, so I'm just going to select the old version or the other driver that I added in the living room, and then just change my room, and then double click it. This allows me to find it a little faster, just a little trick. Rename, call it cable TV, and there's my first device. Next, I'm going to add a sound bar. The brand is going to be Yamaha. Notice sound bars also have bolded drivers, so you always want to stick with these bolded drivers. Double click, and there is our next device. We'll right click, rename, call it soundbar. Now soundbars are just like AVRs in the sense that they do have built-in sources. So we're going to right click, go to the properties menu, and we're going to disable these built-in sources. All right, last thing we're going to do is add another TV. This time it's going to be IR controlled. We're going to go to TV. We're going to choose Sony, and we're going to go with the XBR 55850C. Which, as you can see, we have quite a bit of codes in our database for televisions. Right-click, rename to TV, and then we're going to check the properties real quickly and make sure that there are no built-in sources for us to kind of mess around with. All right, so that's going to be all I'm going to add to this right here. Actually, I want to see something real quickly. I want to see if I have Roku on here. Perfect, I do. So I'm going to add a two-way device to this room as well. Now, two-way devices you typically need to import from the URC dealer portal. So what you would do is you would go to the dealer portal, as I am right here. You would go into the resource page right here. and then you would go to two-way modules, and then you would download whatever two-way module you want. Once it's downloaded, you go back into Accelerator, you click File, and you click Import. Now, every two-way module has an integration guide. Follow the steps on the integration guide, and you'll see the import process as well as all the other requirements that you need to enter into Total Control. But I'm going to add a Roku device into my master bedroom here. Next, I'm going to go into step 5 and do all of my IR routing. So cable is going to go to IR1, soundbar IR2, and then TV goes to IR3. Next, we go to step 6 and we go to URC device, and we would discover all of our other new URC devices. So we would discover and assign the 4IR, the 1080, and the 7600. Next, we go to non-URC device, and we're going to add the IP address of that Roku. Now, I can tell you from experience that Roku only likes DHCP reservations, so you're going to want to create one before you even get into the software. Now we'll go into step 7, and we're going to tell the software how everything is wired.
A quick note, Elvin, while you're talking about that, you know, the great thing about working with audio video export isn't that you just have access to great, amazing products like Universal Remote Control, but also to other brands of products that are complementary to Universal Remote Control, like Luxel brand of products. So Luxel networking gear we're the master distributor for it and within the entire territory, and we're able to support you not only in getting you the right resources for the Universal Remote Control programming like we're doing now, but coincidentally last week we did a webinar for Luxel. So we're fully capable in order to be able to assist you with this kind of level of programming, but as Elvin very well says, you know, sometimes you're going to need to be able to do a DHCP reservation. Well, we can guide you in how to be able to do that as well through the Luxel brand of products. So we're full house. I just wanted to throw that in there. Thanks, Elvin.
Awesome, thank you, Nick. And us here at URC headquarters, we also got your backs as well. Our technical support team is trained on Luxel as well, so we can help you out with DHCP reses if you need our support for whatever the reason may be. So Nick's got your back, and we've got your back too. Going back to the programming here, we're going to add our sources here. So cable TV is going to be HDMI 1, and then we're going to do Roku as HDMI 2. Now we're going to go into step 10, and we're going to accelerate real quickly here. And then we accelerate in step 12 as well. So anytime you accelerate in step 10, always be prepared to accelerate in step 12. That's just kind of how it goes here. And actually, we need to go back because as I can see here, something kind of got lost in translation. So let's go back to step 7. I see what I forgot. I forgot to take the sound bar and connect that to the TV. So you guys are even getting to see a little troubleshooting. So I noticed in step 12 that my rooms menu or my buttons for the master bedroom were pretty limited. And that's because I forgot to connect my sound bar to my TV. Therefore, I didn't get those sources display. Now everything is going to display as I want it to, and you guys will see that right now. So now you can see we've got our cable macro and we've got our Roku macro all available and ready to go. Those two were not displayed before because I had forgotten to connect my sound bar to my TV. So you guys can kind of see the importance of making sure you follow each step thoroughly. At this point, I would just double check any of my punch throughs in step 13. So my main zone, I want the sound bar to be punched through to it. So let's look for the sound bar here, main sound bar. Whoops, there we go, no problem. Save, that's all set. And then we can go into step 14 and do graphics, but I won't do that right now. Instead, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to program this game room, and then I'm going to add some DMS so that we can kind of wrap the day with DMS as the last thing you guys kind of take home with you, because DMS is pretty awesome. But let me quickly do this this game room so you guys can see it. This time I'm going to program the game room as if I was just a programmer, so you guys can see how quickly you can do something like this. So there might be a little silence, but hey, if you have any questions, please drop them in. Nick, if you do see a question pop in, just kind of let me know.
Yeah, I'll do that. And I don't have a problem with narrating as you go along anyway, so go ahead and tackle it out. Just talking about the DMS 1200 and the importance of it, it's a really easy way that's already built in to allow you to be able to digitally stream any of the physical analog sources that are plugged into any of the DMS devices to any other DMS device. So for instance, if you've got, for instance, in this particular case, we've got, an AVR, I think, I don't remember the brand that it is that you use, but if you use one of the brands that we carry, whether it be Pioneer Elite, Denon, Marantz, and then you wanted to be able to listen on that AVR to any of the devices that are physically plugged into the DMS 1200. It could be something as simple as a phono player, a record player. What you do is you use the DMS out, right? And so that's if you think about the DMS as a highway, right? You've got the inputs, which are your on ramps to the highway, and then you have your outputs, which are the off ramps of the highway. And then the highway itself is the actual network. And what ends up happening is that if you've got a phono player, a record player that's plugged into a DMS 1200, a DMS 100, or the DMS in, that phono player now has the on-ramp into that DMS highway, that digital media streamer highway. And what it allows you to do is be able to digitally stream that input to any other DMS within the entire system without having to use a Y cable. So especially for larger homes where you may not be able to use a Y cable and then run extension and then having to do all that split, which decreases the quality of the audio anyway. What it allows you to do is then to be able to stream that over the network, and that's it. So all you're doing in the case of the AVR is now you're using the DMS out in order to be able to off ramp any of those sources into your AVR. It'll program it for you because you're going to use the DMS out, and it'll be as one of the sources inside of the in the AVR. And so when you do all your AV inputs and outputs in step number 7, it shows you and you can select how to be able to do all that kind of stuff. And it knows, and it'll create all the macros for you to be able to do that. And it's a pretty phenomenal system. So as you can see, Elvin, who is in this, lives this, breathes this, does this on a regular basis, he's putting together systems quite simply, quite easily. And that's the idea here, is that you don't have to be an expert, although obviously Elvin is, in order to be able to do this on a regular basis. They have competitions at CEDIA. It's really fun to watch, where they'll get a system and they'll program it, and it's a timed competition to see who can be able to do it the fastest. I think one of the faster ones was like 7 or 8 minutes. I mean, it was ridiculous. But it's a really great and easy system. And the biggest recommendation that we would have is customize the drivers. That's where you're going to spend most of your time. Customize the drivers for the proper graphics. Customize the drivers so that you've got the proper, settings it is that you want with regard to buttons. You don't want buttons showing up needlessly, because when you do the work on the front end in the driver editing, then it's even faster in order to be able to create systems later on, because you don't have to make sure that you're checking off any of these boxes that Elvin is unchecking now.
Perfect. So, Nick, that was a great segue to what we're going to talk about now, because now I'm going to talk to you guys about DMS. So what I've done so far, so I programmed that game room using everything that I've already showed you guys. So there's no new techniques in terms of what I did there. But what I've done so far is I've also added an interface to the kitchen and into the front hall, because we're going to add some DMS to all of this, and we're going to start seeing some things program along. Before I go into that, I'm just going to add one more two-way device, which, Nick, I actually have a question for you. Sonos or Hios?
Sonos.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to add a Sonos device here. Which again, we have integration guides on all of this, so don't worry too much about how I'm adding this. I want you to just more focus on what we're going to do with it, because the adding stuff, you can look through my guide and it'll tell you exactly what to do. This stuff though, this is the stuff that you want to know. So we're going to add the Sonos. What's their AVR style device? It's called the Sonos.
Well, they don't have they don't have an AVR. There's a Hios AVR, but the Sonos, what you would be looking in order to connect to an AVR would be the Connect.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you. The Connect. I was confusing it between the Link, and that was the device I was looking for. So we're going to say this Sonos player that I'm adding here is a Sonos Connect. So I labeled it that to make it nice and easy to understand. So now I'm going to go back to step 3 here, and I'm going to start adding my URC devices. Now I'm going to do a couple things here, because there are some things that we don't teach in 3-day training that are pretty important for you to know. So the first device I'm going to add is actually a DMS 1200 into the living room. So let me just get that, DMS 1200. And I'm also going to add a DMS in here as well. I'll explain why in just a bit. Now, that message you continuously see me ignoring is the MFS message. So anytime you're doing DMS, you must have an MFS device. An MFS device, all it does is it filters, it's a multicast filtering switch. And what it does is it filters out the audio data, because we're streaming at high fidelity, we're streaming at CD quality sound. We keep that audio data from hitting your network and crashing your network. you must have an MFS device in order to do so. If you don't have an MFS device, there is one other company that has our protocol, which is Arachnus by Snap AV, but Luxel is going to have it soon enough as well. So I'm just going to add an MFS PoE 8. We have two types of MFS devices. We have the MFS 8 and the MFS PoE 8. I'm going to tell you the difference. One has PoE, one doesn't. I'll let you figure out which one. Moving from there, so we've got the 1200 here and we have the DMS in. I'm also going to add in the study a DMS 100, and I'm going to add a PSX2, which is our own iPod dock. It's a 30-pin connector, so it's designed for the iPod Classic. However, you can use the 30-pin to Lightning adapter that Apple sells to use your iPhone or any other type of iOS device. But this is going to be what we're going to start off with DMS here. Now, I'm not going to be adding any other type of URC device or anything like that. This is going to be what we want. And what you'll notice is automatically over here, step 8 begins to, it highlights because now we can actually select it and start doing a few things with it. So I'm going to click on step 8 here, and I'm going to explain everything that I've got going on. So we're going to start with this DMS 1200. Now we have a Sonos Connect here. Now I've never personally used the Sonos Connect, but I have used like the Sonos Play One, which is Nick, correct me if I'm wrong. That's like their little speaker device, right?
Which one? I'm sorry.
The Sonos one. That's just like the speaker where everything's built into that speaker.
Yeah, it's just a little small all-in-one device.
Perfect. So I have used that in the past, so I'm familiar with Sonos's environment. I'm just not completely familiar with their higher end products because, well, URC doesn't give them to me for free, so I gotta kind of work for them on my own dime, so to speak. But what we're gonna do is, whether this is a Sonos Connect, whether this is a Sonos Play Bar, Play One, whatever it is, you want to locate that actual device. You want to locate the interface module of it. So if you look in the project tree, we have the Sonos core and we have the Sonos interface. Anytime you're using Sonos or anytime you're using HEOS, you're always going to have one core module. You have to have one core module. The core module is what actually runs the actual two-way. However, the interface module is the actual device. So I'm going to take the Sonos Connect, which is the interface module, and I'm going to connect it to one of the inputs on the back of the DMS 1200. By doing so, I give access to this Sonos Connect to every DMS controlled zone in this system. But we're going to come back to more on that in just a second. Another thing that a lot of people will typically do is they'll take the red and white cables, the red and white from your audio from the back of your cable box, and connect it as an input on the DMS 1200 so they can stream game day audio. So maybe you've got a customer that's a big Marlins fan or a big Tampa Bay Devil Rays, well, they're not called the Devil Rays anymore, the Tampa Bay Rays fan, and they want to hear the baseball game outside in the patio or anything like that. You can have the audio going directly, the audio and video going HDMI to your TV, but then you can take the audio out with just a red and white cable and connect it to the back of a DMS 1200 and stream the audio separately. Now, we don't create any type of lip sync issues, so you don't need to worry about that. What I will tell you is not all cable boxes support this, but we're going to say that this cable box does. Now notice I did add an Apple TV here, but I haven't connected to the DMS 1200. Our DMS in has the ability to use optical, and it also has the ability to use digital. So you can use digital audio, and you can actually take that Apple TV and connect it. You can also, I believe the 4K Apple TVs don't have optical or anything like that, but you can use a converter to get it to optical or to digital coax. And then you can take that Apple TV and connect it as a source to DMS. Now, why would you want to do that? What's one of the biggest features of an Apple TV? AirPlay. By doing so, you can give your customer the option, because the other thing about the DMS in is it has a built-in audio sensor. With that built-in audio sensor, we can build something that says when audio is detected, automatically turn on the source, automatically run any specific macro. So by doing this, you can literally launch Apple TV and then have that Apple TV launch play audio. That audio triggers a macro to activate any activity in your system. So that's pretty powerful. So I'm gonna go back to this 1200. We've got two sources here. Let's go to the DMS 100 that's in the study. We're gonna take that PSX2 iPod dock and we're gonna drag and drop it as an input here. Now, as Nick was saying, one of the best things about DMS is that it allows you to distribute or stream music across all of your DMS zones. And I'm gonna show you how to add those zones in just a second. The other sub-step here is called input settings, and input settings allow you to change what happens when you change inputs on DMS, and also allows you to do source matching. Source matching is where you adjust individual input level settings. So let's say you have a source that's a little louder than all your other sources. You just locate that source, select the drop-down menu, and change the input level setting. This does require a little bit of trial and error, so I do want you to kind of know that ahead of time. And as for what happens when DMS switches inputs, you can either have it switch instantly, or what most of our dealers tend to do is do a fade out, fade in with just that 2 seconds. Although you can customize this to whatever amount of time you want. You can even have it go as fast as 0.1 seconds, which is pretty much instant, or as awkward as a 5-second fade out, fade in. And you can do this for any device that has inputs. So even the DMS in has that capability, and the DMS 100. Zone assignments. Now this is where we're going to assign our DMS controlled zone. So we're going to say the kitchen is a DMS zone. We're going to make the patio a DMS zone. So like I said, what if my customer wants to listen to the Marlins play in the patio? Well, now I've got that option. And I'm also going to make the dining room a DMS controlled zone. Pretty much any DMS controlled zone is going to have 2 speakers in there, and those speakers are going to be playing out the audio that's coming out of DMS. Now, I'm going to stick with 1200 here because the 1200 has a very specific feature that is unique to it, and that's located right here on the bottom, which is boost max zone output. As I told you previously, the DMS 1200 is an 8-zone unit with 2 preamp zones and 6 powered zone. Each powered zone gets 100 watts, 50 watts per channel. So if you're only using 3 out of the 6 powered zones, you have 300 watts of unallocated power. By simply checking this box here, our system will automatically take that unused wattage and reallocate them to all of your current DMS controlled zones. So look at the chart right here. Under the max output column, now you have 200 watts in your kitchen, 200 watts in your patio, 200 watts in your dining room. I'm pretty sure at that point you can sell some pretty nifty speakers and make some nice margin off of that. Now going into the study here, we're just going to assign that zone. Pretty easy. And that's it. So now these are my DMS controlled zones. I have a DMS controlled zone in my kitchen, my dining room, my patio, and my study. Now, if I wanted to give access to DMS to any of these non-DMS controlled zones, I can easily add a DMS out and do so by doing that. And I'll show you that real quickly right at the end. I just want to kind of go over this overview here on DMS. So once your DMS assignments are all set, so once you've got all of your rooms assigned to DMS, you go to we're still in step 8. You go to zone settings here, and you can adjust individual zone settings. So if you're doing this in commercial and stereo isn't exactly the best setting for you, you can set each individual's DMS zone to mono. So again, that's an individual setting, so you have to go to each zone and set that. Same thing with your zone output. You can have it set to variable or fixed. You can set up the max volume. Now this one is global, so you can set this across all of your DMS controlled zones. Below that, we have turn on volume, which we always recommend setting to preset and using a preset volume between 20 to 30%. The customer had a huge party the night before and the volume was cranking at 100%. That next morning becomes very, very disruptive when they wake up and turn on their system. Using a preset makes that a lot easier. Below that is the turn on volume ramp rate. So pretty much from when I turn on this zone, how fast will it reach that preset volume? Well, it's going to do so in this example at 0.6, and this is also a global setting. You can apply this to every DMS zone. Below that, we have the listener distance to the speaker, and this is just your best estimation in terms of how far your listener is going to be, whether it's 3 foot, 6 foot, 12 foot, or 25 foot. And then, of course, you pick your speaker type, whether it's indoor or outdoor. Lastly, we have the room EQ settings, which you have basic adjustments in terms of bass boost and treble boost. Or if you're big into audio, you can click custom and you can change the entirely fully customizable 5-band parametric EQ. Now, these EQs can be customized for each zone individually. So making one change on one zone does not apply it to every other zone that you're using. So just keep that in mind. At this point, we go into step 10. We hit accelerate. And now let me select a DMS controlled zone, for example, the kitchen here. It has a folder called DMS Music. And what do we have inside DMS Music? We have Sonos Connect, Cable TV, Apple TV, and PSX2. All pretty powerful stuff. Now I'm going to accelerate in step 12 here. And that DMS Music menu is going to be found in every DMS controlled zone. So kitchen, dining room, patio, study, all of those zones will have that right there. And if I look at any of those zones, for example, kitchen here, and I choose something like Sonos Connect, you can see that the macro has all been built for me automatically, and I don't need to really do anything to it. Now, the last few things that I'm just going to show you here, it's going to be quick. It's just going to be some things that you may want to consider doing. So, for example, we have a lot going on inside of the living room here. However, this living room AVR doesn't have access to the DMS stream, so it doesn't have access to any of those devices that are streaming over the network. So let's take a DMS out and add it to the room. All right, it's been added.
Elvin, the other thing that we could do in this particular case is the DMS 1200, given that it's got two zones that are preamplified, we could go out of a DMS 1200 preamp, either zone 7 or zone 8 straight into the AVR, could we not?
You're absolutely right, we can. So what I'm going to show you, you could either do with the preamp zones of your 1200, or you can do it with the DMS out. I'm going to go with the DMS out though, simply because that's kind of URC's initiative. That's kind of what the DMS out we want it to be used for. Not to say we don't want you to use those preemptive zone of the 1200, but it's just the DMS out was literally made for this. So I just kind of want to stick with that. But whatever I'm showing you, whatever I'm about to show you, you can do it with zone 7 or zone 8 on the 1200. So Nick, thank you for making that call because you're 1000% right. You absolutely can do that. The other thing I'm going to do here is I'm also going to add an SMP2 because the SMP2 is awesome because it's the lazy programmer's best friend. Just leave it on the project, discover it, and download. That's it. You don't have to connect it to an input. You don't have to do anything special with it. All of its built-in sources will automatically populate in any DMS controlled zone. So I'm going to show you that as well. Cool, so we've got our DMS device here. Next thing to do would be step 6, which anytime you add any URC device, always remember to come here and discover all of your devices. Again, I don't have all of these devices in my office, so there's not much I can show you here. Simply choose a device, hit refresh, select the device, hit assign. And then remember, either set it to a DHCP reservation within your Luxel router or your third-party router, whatever the case may be. And then also remember, if you are doing that, be consistent. Make sure everything is set to DHCP reservation or set it to static, whatever your preference is. I personally use DHCP reservation, and our tech support team has been instructed to recommend DHCP reservation. So that might be the best route for you guys to go with. Now, when it comes to that DMS out or the preemptive zone, the preamp zones on the DMS 1200, you want to go to step 7. And in step 7, you want to choose your third-party AVR. So we're living room, we're AVR. Perfect. Now look under the living room column. We have the DMS out, and we also have the preamp zones of the DMS 1200. Now ignore zone 7, ignore zone 8, ignore zone 1. Just think about this as DMS output, because that's all we're really caring about. We just want an output from DMS. Now I'm going to take this output right here, this DMS out zone 1, which again, it could be the zone 7 or the zone 8 on that 1200. And I'm going to drag and drop it onto an input on that DMS, on that third-party AVR. So maybe I have a, what's it called, an optical input, or maybe I have a digital coax input, whatever the case may be. You want to drag and drop it on that. Once you've done so, you want to come here. Remember how I told you that UI zone lock is only for third-party room linking? Well, it's really going to be anytime you're connecting a DMS output to any third-party AVR. So you're going to click select zone, and what you're going to do here is you're going to tell the system what zone of that AVR do you want to give it DMS. What zone do you want to give access to DMS? Now, what's the only zone we're using of this AVR? We're only using zone 1. So simply click on zone 1, hit OK. Now you'll notice that this makes a change. Now it's UI zone lock to zone 1. Now we've already done our zone assignment, so there's nothing else that we need to do here. And as a matter of fact, with the DMS out, there isn't really much for us to do other than going to DMS setup here, going to zone settings, and if you need to change the zone type here, actually I think they recently removed, nope, you can still do that. You can set it to mono because DMS out does support, it does auto mono conversion, so if you do need to convert something to mono for a business or whatever the case may be, you can do so. Lastly, I'm going to come into step 10 here. I'm going to accelerate. And now that I've accelerated here, when I look into the music menu here inside of the living room, I have access to everything that is streaming over DMS, which is pretty cool. And then when I go into step 12 and I accelerate here, pretty much we can see the stuff that's coming off of the SMP2, and anything that's coming off of the SMP2 can also be seen on any of these devices as well. Oh, any DMS controlled zone. So that's pretty awesome. At this point, we download to all of our devices, which is something that I would always recommend doing. One more thing that I want to recommend when it comes to downloading, because I've been kind of surprised at how many systems or just dealers that we have here that don't utilize this feature. And usually once I bring it up to people, once they use it once, they never stop using it. And that's going to be the parallel downloads feature, which my computer takes a little while saving this, so give it a second.
Parallel downloads, best thing ever.
Yep. Especially if you've been doing total control for a long time. Like I've been programming an Accelerator since Accelerator 1.0, and in 1.0, parallel downloads didn't exist for a very, very long time. So whenever you clicked on downloads, you had to wait for each device individually to receive the full download, which, you could do your taxes faster in some systems. So what you would do is pick whatever device you want to download to, make sure this box is checked, and I mean, you can still see it. It's all going to fail, but you'll see it anyway. It'll allow you to download to all of the devices simultaneously, which is amazing. If you've never had to not use this feature, you wouldn't understand why it is amazing, but parallel downloads is one of the best features inside of our software. But cool, with that aside, let me go onto the dealer portal here because I want to show you guys some more things. Under training, go to the training homepage. On our homepage here, you can go to self-paced tutorial. Just type in 2.0, hit search, and these are all of the all of the e-learnings, all of our self-paced classes specifically on Total Control 2.0. I would suggest taking programming in Accelerator 2.0 as that would be a great review of everything we spoke about here. I would also suggest taking creating custom drivers level 1. Very, very important. Nick, I presume you guys AVE sells Sonos specifically, correct?
Affirmative.
Awesome. So then I would also recommend the Sonos integration e-learning that's available here as well, as Sonos is one of those core modules, so it's really unique in the way that it gets programmed, and it wasn't something I got to really cover in detail here, so I would recommend using that as well. And then the last thing that I would recommend here is, where did it go? I think I may have passed it. I showed you guys the drivers one, showed you guys the programming one. I would just say using the understanding macros and automation, as those are things that we didn't really get into full details here, but it is something that's very, very important to learn. So again, this is just the training home tab, and there's plenty of stuff for you guys to take here. All of this is free. They're all typically about 15 minutes, and it's all interactive.
If you don't have access to this portal, please make sure that you get in touch with me directly. That's nick@av-export.com, and we'll make sure that you have the link, the registration link, in order to be able to have access to this page. You can not only look at all these self-paced tutorials, but there are also pre-recorded webinars. There are also the resources that Elvin was showing you before, as well as the program itself, Total Control 2.0, which obviously critical in order to be able to program anything.
Nick, quick question for you, actually. I don't know if I've had a chance to send this to you, or if anybody on the team has. We developed a workbook for our 3-day training that we have in a PDF format. It's almost 130 pages, but it covers from step 1 all the way to the download phase. I don't know if you have, if you've gotten that.
I have not. If you could send that over, that'd be awesome.
Perfect. And I was going to ask you if you could send it to the attendees of this webinar and the webinar for tomorrow.
Yeah, of course.
Perfect. All right, well, folks, that's everything I've got for you. So I'm going to open up the questions dialog box and have a little Q&A with any questions you guys may have.
Actually, in the interest of time, let's go ahead and hold those out. I actually answered all of them. So there were a couple of them that were pending about some of the DMS systems. Great questions. But in the interest of time, we've covered a lot in a little bit of time, and Elvin, you did an amazing job trying to cram all that in there.
Thank you. I apologize. It went a little bit over the hour, but believe me, I could talk about this all day.
No. And there's still so much more that we could even talk about that's really critically important. I think one of the most important things that most dealers fail to do is create real automation. They'll create a button that does a bunch of things when you click on the button, but that's not real automation. Real automation is when things happen without a user having to touch those things for those things to happen. So they happen literally automatically, and that's where most people don't really set themselves apart. And so there's an entire course on that, on using macros in automation, whether it be geofencing, NFC, whether it be sensors, a whole list of things.
We can even automate devices based on other devices.
Exactly. So, and then you can start getting into Z-Wave. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Within this here, if you don't mind showing them, Elvin, just where they can look at the in-person tutorials there on that training page, so that they can see that if you scroll up, yep, in-person trainings. There are in-person trainings. You can see that they're listed by invitation only. That means that the 3-day trainings in particular, there is like that first one where it says Orlando, Florida, invitation only. It says it's coming up. Well, it just happened, but there will be more of those in this list. And
I believe there's one coming up in June, pretty
Yep.
sure.
And you get some of them are all also there in URC headquarters, which is pretty neat too. So I got to head up there as well. I know that Ocampo was able to go up there, which is pretty cool. But the point is, though, is that those are invitation only and requires a registration code. Please get in touch with me in order to be able to get that registration code so you can do. There's a cost associated with it, but you also get an MRX8, you get a Z-Wave module, you get a TDC 7600, I think it is, or 7100, 7100 rather.
And you get the plug-in lamp dimmer.
Yeah, so you get enough of a system in order to be able to start, hanging out and trying out stuff and really neat. Cool. So yeah, Edelson, go ahead and send that to me via email. All right, guys. Well, thanks again, Elvin. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for participating and for showing up. This is being recorded again, so you will have access to this. I will put it on our website, our YouTube page, and you also get a follow-up email with regard to that. I appreciate it so much, and have a great day.
Awesome, Nick. We'll talk.